And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 22nd of October, 2019. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to this new studio. I'm continually working on this. If you look at, as you all know, when I first started using the green screen again here the other day, I was having some problems on the adjustments. And you'll notice I still have a slight problem here today, but most of that's a lighting problem. I got a new camera. And so hopefully it's going to work just fine. Now what I have to do as usual is make sure that the sound is good because I'm playing around with the microphones and this microphone is supposed to be working. So if you'll let me know if the sound is actually on, I will appreciate it. And then we'll get started. So... looking sharp as a tack there. Well, that's all right. Fomenting Discord, how's the sound? Can you all hear me talk, or we've got a problem there? Okay, all okay. Sound, video. Great. Thank you very much, Val. I appreciate that. Like I say, I hate to have to do that every time, but with the internet connection in this area, number one, and number two, the situation with the new information here, it makes it kind of difficult. Looks like we're still having transmission problems, but I'll just continue on as if we're not having the problem, okay? It's telling me that the live stream is sick, but we'll just go with it. A lot of it has to do, I've got some more adjustments to do, so we'll work on that as time goes along. All right. As I promised, I wanted to get into the Mexico thing today, and that's really what we're going to do here. I'm going to try to take some of your questions. I can honestly say I used to be a subject matter expert on this, as you all know, and in the description box below is the link to my documentary, Borders, Mexican Drug War or Insurgency. And so those are, let's see here, I'm going to try something. Let's take that off and see if that does a little better in the transmission. We're having a lot of problems here, so I apologize for that. Nothing new. So at any rate, like I said, that link to the Borders there again is there, but I wanted to go over some things, and I'm going to say it quickly this morning because we are having some problems on the stream. And let me just say that this drug war that's been going on it's really ridiculous, because what in fact it is it's not a drug war at all. It's basically, and it has been, as I say in Borders, an insurgency that's been going on for a long time. The United States government's been on it, primarily the CIA, of course, as I've talked about before, and China, of course. And so when we look at these drug cartels, they've actually taken over vast portions of the Mexican government, vast portions. And I noticed Will Chamberlain had a tweet today that I'd like to read to you because I think it's apropos. Will Chamberlain is, I forget the name of his new news organization, but if you know anything about Will Chamberlain, he's been around for a long time and he has a lot of good things to say. And basically he said everybody's talking about Syria, but nobody, and this means people in the government, but nobody, including the MSM, really is talking about what's going on in Mexico. Ladies and gentlemen, as I pointed out for years now, this is a major problem because the drug cartels have taken over large swaths of the Mexican government, and of course they're highly represented even in our government at different spots. I would dare say even people in our Congress and in the DEA, everywhere there are links to it. So if there is a problem in the world for the United States, it's the southern border with Mexico. The drug cartels are, I'm going to say it again, are an insurgency. If they were just doing their business, that'd be one thing, but they're not. They're actually taking over the government. That's what they're working at doing, and as well as running the drugs to destabilize the United States. We know about fentanyl coming in from China, and China has said, not just because you've heard Alex Jones say it, that this is basically chemical warfare against us. Yes, they've agreed to, with Trump, we'll agree to cut down the fentanyl and all that, but in fact, they really, really don't. They're actually using that to hurt us and to to get money, of course. So let me bring up a few things this morning that I think might be of interest to you. The first is that these cartels and these efforts to destabilize the United States are being done in conjunction with the leftists in our country that are in positions of influence, educational institutions, government institutions, and of course the mainstream media, which I've always linked to the intelligence community, primarily the CIA. You saw the other day where, if you were paying attention, where there was an organization, I forget the name of it, but basically they were starting to identify by address and name donors to the Trump campaign who helped Trump get elected in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the start of civil war. They started identifying actual people that they're going to target. This has been done before in some circumstances, but not with the background that we have with things like Antifa and other leftists who have threatened Trump supporters even with their lives. Very, very serious. Now the question comes down, why would the drug cartels take part in that? Well, partly because they see an opportunity to have power. Everybody likes that. But then a lot of people say, well, if they come and they destroy the United States, where are they going to sell their drugs anymore? At that point, they won't care, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, do you understand? Once it's taken down, they don't care. All right, because they'll have what they need, and basically, if the United States goes into balkanization, which it's very close to doing, then they'll just take control of certain areas of it. Who can buy the drugs? That's not even the issue anymore. That's the method of control. So do you understand what's happening here? This is very serious on our southern border. Now, do we want to treat it like an insurgency and invade Mexico? No. President Obrador has said that he appreciates President Trump and the efforts that President Trump is making with Mexico. Interesting, Trump recently has talked to Obrador about the weapons problem from the United States. Here we go again. The Mexican drug cartels can get as many weapons as they want. They don't need to get weapons from the United States, and I've pointed that out before. Fast and Furious was a way to additionally arm the cartels, but they don't need us. They've got the Chinese. They've got plenty of other people that will help them to do that. So that's a little disturbing that Mexico is still willing to blame our Second Amendment and the guns of the United States for the problems in Mexico. And then they avoid some of these other questions like, the refugee crisis. And I know it's not a refugee crisis, not at this point. If we started a war, counterinsurgency in Mexico, that could change. And that's another political reason why we're not going to go there. We don't need to cause a war with Mexico. First of all, it wouldn't be declared by Congress because too many of them are on the take on the drug deal. And secondly, it would cause some real diplomatic problems for us as far as declaring war on Mexico. And it wouldn't be on Mexico. It would be on the insurgency in Mexico, of course. But that would have to be by invitation of the Mexican government, and I just don't see them doing that. Remember, they're run by the cartels, so the cartels aren't going to invite President Trump in to take care of this. So it's a very bad situation politically, and it's not easy to resolve, and I understand that. But that all being said, the fact of the matter is that the military should be at our southern border and prevent this insurgency from spilling over into the United States any worse than it has. There are a lot of factions looking for power in the U.S. They're tearing our country apart. But that's something on the southern border that we can do that's positive, and we should be doing it right away. Let me check on the connection here again to see how we're doing. Okay, we're going to get to chat in a little while if everything hangs up here, hangs on, and we don't lose anything. Okay, let me give you just one statistic, okay? And this is really, I took it from CNN because I figure, CNN, if I quote it from them, okay, you've at least got that much that they're willing to admit to. In Culiacan, which is why this whole thing has been brought up again. People have been asking me about it. We had that situation where the government arrested basically Ovidio Guzman, who is the son of El Chapo Guzman, right? Loera. And they were planning on adjudicating him, prosecuting him, but then the cartels took over Culiacan. They're already there, but they did something really bad. I don't know if you realize this. There's a housing complex there that houses the wives and children of the soldiers, of Mexican soldiers. And the cartel soldiers basically got in that area and were threatening the wives and children. Terrible situation. That's why you need to have fortified areas for families like our government has for our soldiers. But at any rate, they basically went after the government there in Culiacan, shot the place up, threatened to kill the women and children by positioning. It was by their position more than what they said, and that caused the Mexican government, which is again infiltrated by these same cartel members, to bow the knee and basically to give up. And Obrador said, well, we don't want any collateral damage. Well, the moment you start, first of all, the way that they've secured themselves or not secured themselves, as the case may be in Mexico, they've opened themselves up to these problems. And then second of all, to give in to these cartels and these drug soldiers is what they are. They're really soldiers of the insurrection, and they're different factions, of course, but and they play off each other, and we'll get into that in just a minute too. But the fact of the matter is that was a mistake. That was a big mistake, and President Trump has got to understand that what he has in Mexico is a government that is willing to capitulate to terrorists. That's what they're doing, and not take decisive, definitive action to take these things out. So, again, that's a tricky situation. Trump could use an emergency type thing under the War Power. Well, it wouldn't be the War Powers Act, I don't suppose, but he could take decisive action to go in there after certain members of the cartel. But then you've got to worry about the different cartels. But then you'd have to worry about how the Mexican government's going to receive it, and I'll admit that would be a problem because, again, they have allies in the U.S. and all of our institutions, the Congress, the DEA, the different enforcement agencies. I wouldn't, and I don't want to put a dispersion on the courts, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have some influence there. So there are a lot of things that are going on here, but that's why I say the very minimum, maybe no incursions into Mexico to go after the cartels, at least not at this point, but at least putting them on the border to stop this. Now, the illegal immigration that we're seeing, that needs to be stopped, of course. A lot of cartel members are using that for trafficking, both in drugs and in human beings. The Chinese are doing the same thing. And, of course, Islamic extremists are doing the same thing. So it's absolutely imperative that they get the military on the border. And I've been calling that since 2011, as you know. So the situation in Culiacan kind of brought some of this to the surface. It's still not being covered the way it should be, and how serious this is. I mean, if this type of activity was going on, and I mean, look what they did in Vietnam. They orchestrated, they pretended that there was an insurgency there. It was a civil war, no doubt about it. But at the same time, our government used it as communist insurgency, which was kind of a ridiculous thing, and they do that everywhere. So they'll go into these other places. Look at Syria, look at Iraq, look at Afghanistan, look at all these places they'll go, but they're not going to protect the diplomatic or the democratic, and it is more democratic. It's supposed to be a Republic of Mexico, but the point is it's supposed to be a free country, and it's not. And part of that is because of the reticence on the part of our leaders to do anything about it. And of course, Obrador is an example of not wanting to do anything there. And this goes throughout the entire area in Mexico. But again, getting back to Culiacan, it kind of awakened many Americans. And I just want to say this because this is how serious the insurgency is. Since 2006, and this is according to CNN, okay, there have been 150,000 people killed. Whoa. In 13 years, 150,000 people killed. And I know that's an understatement. It's probably twice that. But see, and I could have gone and gotten some other statistics to prove that, but I just figured I'd just use CNN because then it's not going to cause a big, to do that I'm inflating or overinflating the numbers. 150,000. Anywhere else that had happened where the U.S. has an interest, and certainly our southern border is an interest, and they're one of our major trading partners, you'd think we'd take a more active role. I happen to know for a fact, because I worked in the area, okay, that's all I'll say about it, that the United States Army, at least, was involved in interdiction operations in Central and South America during the 80s, okay, and again in the 90s. You know what's disturbing is, and I can't prove it, but I have a feeling that a lot of that has been curtailed. We're monitoring it, but I don't think we're doing much about it. And that's another reason why this has exploded. Why has that happened? Well, all you got to do is look at who's been running the government, our government, for the last 20, 30 years. And that should be abundantly clear to you. This is a threat to our South. And of course, we've got the foreign wars where that we shouldn't have as much interest, if at all, in. Those are draining us of our resources, those foreign wars, and we have a threat from the South. And we have threats now inside our country from these different balkanized groups, not just leftists, Marxists, not just Democrats and Republicans. And there is that divide there that I've talked about. And if you're a Democrat and you're a leftist, you are evil. End of story, period. Okay? Because you want to take away the fundamental liberties of mankind. Okay, I'm not even going to argue the point. As a matter of fact, I heard the other day, that big billboard that's in Times Square in New York. Again, I'm sorry about the interruptions here. That's just the way it is, and I apologize. The billboard where it shows the female ex-Marine, former Marine. Boy, we're just having all kinds of problems with this. Okay, I'm sorry. Hopefully I'll get a better connection one of these days. In my other studio, I have a pretty good one. The one I do Nightcap from, it works pretty well. But this one is the one I have to use in the daytime, at least for right now. So they have that billboard in New York where it shows the female Marine hog tying and jackbooting President Trump. And the owner of that, who put that up, says that they're just trying to influence the progressive nature of our country, what they mean by that, and the evolution of our country. Well, our country doesn't need to evolve into progressive leftist ideology and enforcers. We don't need to do that because that takes away what America's about. That's individual liberty. So, you have this mindset in our country, and it's not by accident, ladies and gentlemen. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's supernatural forces, but I think it certainly has a part of that. Okay. The government of Mexico basically has ceded its power to the drug cartels, this insurgency. So it'd be the same thing as if the communists had taken over the country. It's basically the same thing. And the end game, wow, we're just having tons of difficulties here. I am so sorry. Yeah, we're having tons of difficulties. I won't make this long today. I just wanted to make sure that I addressed it. So the government of Mexico has ceded. Brother, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible output. I'm not going to make you all sit through this, and I just have to apologize. That's all I can say. We are having a storm here, too. That never helps. So it might be a bad day to have even tried this. Again, the government of Mexico has basically ceded its power to the drug cartels, has ceded its power to these influences, and we really need to take some type of defensive action. The United States does. Okay, that's basically what I wanted to say today. I don't want to hold you here. This is ridiculous how the interruptions continue on, okay? So I'll just say thanks for coming. Let me look through the chat real quick. Again, I think I'm having just too many of these interruptions Too many interruptions to hold you here. It's just not fair to you. This area of the country is still in the Stone Age when it comes to this stuff, as I said before, and I can't fix it. Not at this location. At my other location, I can, but I just had to jump on this morning as I could. Let me just watch this and see if we're going to continue on here at all. Okay, let's get a couple of your questions in here. Little buffers sometimes, but nothing critical. On my end, it's saying red. It's giving me a red, meaning the stream health is really bad. Okay, let's take a look at any of your any questions. El Chapo might be locked up, but he is just as powerful behind bars. Absolutely true, Tony. And that's the point about what's going on here. Absolutely, and I agree. And they're linked up with this whole idea of Azatlan. They want to take over that area of the United States that used to be part of Mexico, right? But I've looked at the history of that pretty closely, and they really have no claim there. But that doesn't matter because the leftists in our country are pushing it as well behind the scenes. It's to break up the country. Let's see here. Build a wall and turrets. Yeah, Don Sears says that. Morgan Hill, let's not bellicose hyperbole. I appreciate you bringing that up because it does have an influence. But let's stay with Mexico today, okay? For a number of reasons. One is because I think it's that important. It could very well impact or Morgan Hill could be, impacting that and vice versa. But let's stick just with the problem on Mexico today. The Morgan Hill thing, I don't want to go so far as to say what a lot of other commentators and news, alternative news sources are saying. I'm not sure about that. As a matter of fact, I've got some other issues there. But we'll cover that maybe some other time. Okay, cartels own most of law enforcement in the Southwest, a good number of them. That's very true. Let's see. Legalize drugs to take the profit out of it. And I say that at the end of my borders. Basically, that's what I say at the end of my borders thing, and because all of this is contrived. At least it should be on the par of maybe prescription drugs, something like that. But yeah, the U.S. should have learned the problem with a war on anything like this from the Prohibition. But remember, there's money to be made, and not just in the selling of the drugs, but in putting people in prison. And so often, except for this El Chapo case, they don't put the bigwigs in prison. The chances are that El Chapo was probably paying people off, was probably the reason why he stayed free for so long. Kind of like General Noriega in Panama. The reason why they took Noriega out wasn't because of all the claims that they were making against him that he was ill-treating U.S. service members. No, that wasn't it at all. That was just an excuse. Not that it didn't happen, but that was really the excuse. The real thing was that he had taken some of the cut away from the CIA and George Bush, the senior George Bush. Tony Blassetti, you always have a way with things. Non-uniform enemy combatants. They're called spies. They're called insurgents, okay? That's why I use that. Let's see how this live stream is still saying it's really acting up here. Okay. Like I said, I'm not going to hold you guys long this morning. And I might just, have to move my whole operation. See, this is my morning area. I get to have my coffee in my own area and all that. But I do have this other studio with a much better connection, and I guess I should use that. Melinda Ann Burns, I agree. Trump needs to bring our troops home now. He's working on it, I do believe. There's nothing wrong with keeping forces forward. I do believe in that. So not all troops should come home. As far as, you have the MEUs, the military, or the Marine Expeditionary Units out on the ocean. You have these different posts around the world. I don't think we need, like 800, something like that, installations around the world. We don't need that. We do need forces forward to react to things, but most of these troops should come home, I agree. We have problems here. First of all, the president needs to be protected, number one. Number two, we have a problem on our southern border. Number three, we have balkanization going on by the leftists. We have an insurgency in our own government. Absolutely 100% true. And no, using the military to counter an insurrection is not violating posse comitatus or guarding our borders from invasion. That is not posse comitatus. I hear even military people saying that, and they're wrong. They're absolutely 100% wrong. No, we need it. We need it right now. Deplorable. Yeah, fully synthetic. I doubt that, else our troops wouldn't be guarding opium. Yeah, they're not all. Fentanyl, I think, is primarily synthetic, but I'm not a chemist, so I don't know all that. But yeah, we have been guarding the opium fields, especially in Afghanistan, for a long time by the Marine Corps. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. John Clark, you're talking about false flags. Again, I don't want to go there, but all of it's set up. All of this is set up. This week we're supposed to get the OIG report, and I'm seeing different information on that both ways. But it doesn't matter. Our government lies to us. They lie to the President of the United States. Even the President hasn't been forthright on some things, right? Las Vegas, the red flag laws, right? What's really going on with Afghanistan, JFK, 9/11. Okay, I understand these things are delicate, and he may, maybe I should say might, he might be trying to play this out so that he can do it right. But as I've said all along, I consider the inaction a mistake. Okay, but I don't want to go there. I want to stay on Mexico today. So let's see. Could the cartels be source of the wall holdup? Ha ha ha! Excellent, deplorable. Of course, of course. And who would they have influence in our country to slow down the wall and to slow down troops on the border? Nancy Pelosi's number one. She was walking through, she goes to Mexico. She has a close association with these politicians in Mexico who are definitely all part of the cartels, or at least on the take, paid off. Of course. Of course, so very good. Absolutely. Nancy Pelosi needs to be in jail. So does Chuck Schumer. I mean, a lot of them do. And I swear, I hope, this is going to rip the country apart, but we'll never fix it if we don't cut these cancers out, and that's what they are. They need to be arrested, and they need to be tried, and if convicted, jailed or executed. I'm serious. And I've been serious about that for a long time. There is no other way to fix this. You can't do it, but you can see they're not going to work with Trump because their power base is threatened. You've got an immovable force meeting an irresistible object. I guess it's the other way around. Irresistible force meeting an immovable object. And it's oil and water. There's no way this will ever be put back together again. The Democrats and the leftists have taken it there. That's what they wanted. They wanted to, what did Obama say? Fundamentally transform the government of the United States. That's what he wanted to do. And if that's what he wants, he should go to China. We want our country to be what it is, which is a country based on true liberty. I'm not saying that our government's been perfect on that. We've had some horrible people. We've had some horrible things happen here. But the principles are there if we'll just hold on to them. Okay. That's an old subject that I talk about too much here. Because you guys already know where I stand on all of that. Okay, let's see here. Cartels buy off the poor Mexican towns. Hey, when I was doing, Bliss says that, when I was doing my Borders documentary, I talked to people where they had been approached by the cartels, different drug cartels, and said, we'll give you some money, we're going to use your property, but if you don't go along with us, we'll kill you. I mean, it's that bad. People were genuinely afraid. And then, our DHS leader, Janet Napolitano, said, there's not a problem on the border. There's no threat, which obviously tells me either she doesn't know anything what she's talking about or she's part of the problem. And I think it's the latter, okay? Yeah, deplorable, you're right about that. But again, I don't want to really go there. I want to stay with Mexico. But she's saying that the Taliban were threatening to wipe Afghanistan free of the opium poppy. Yeah, they did. The Taliban, yeah, there's more to this, of course, than we all realize. That's one reason why, what you just said there, that's one reason why the CIA and the upper brass of the military killed Pat Tillman. You're right on the money, deplorable. You're absolutely right. It's not what we're being told, and I can't believe that Trump doesn't know it. But like I said, like with the situation in Mexico, you just can't go in there, for a lot of reasons. We need to be invited. That's not going to happen because of the forces in the United States, the political forces in the United States, and of course the ties in. Obrador has his hands tied, or he's part of the problem. That's just the way it is. But that's why I say we may not want to invade. We might not even want to do surgical strikes like we were doing throughout Central and South America back in the 80s and 90s. But we do need to have good, strong security on our border. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Melinda Ann Burns. Again, you make a good point. Fascists and communists just as bad as each other and are not welcome in this country. Yeah. The fascists say, you're communist, and the communists say, you're fascist. It's totalitarian authoritarianism. It doesn't matter. I've often had the continuum where it's not the left and right for me isn't like fascism here and communism here. It's not like that for me. Or fascism. Mine is leftist here and liberty here. So it would be anarchy on this side, and it would be total totalitarianism on this side. And then you have different iterations of all that in between. So, fascism and communism, especially the Chinese type of communism or the Nazi type of fascism, would be on this side, total totalitarian control, no freedoms. Anarchy would be here, and a Republican form of government, a democratic, you got to be careful with the word democracy, but a democratic Republican form of government would be kind of center. Well, actually, probably a little bit more towards the anarchy side to guarantee individual freedom. But this entire left-right paradigm as it's given to us today is used to keep us ignorant on what the real issues are. And the real issues are total control and slavery, or freedom, liberty. That's the continuum, but they don't want to go there. Okay, so that's the reason why and this is historical. This has been going on for a long time. Fomenting discord, I don't know that he has or not. I don't know that he's in control. Is she saying, or he's saying, whichever. I've heard rumor Trump stopped the opium field protections. He may have wanted to, but they're not following his orders. Just face it. That's why I say we've got a problem in the Department of Defense too. The IC and the DOD are intertwined. It's a very bad situation. But let's stay on Mexico today. Fully Awakened, I don't know that anybody's really interfering with the broadcast. I want to apologize for this. Part of it is probably due to the fact that let's see what it's saying. Yeah, it still says it's red. I'm using a green screen now for the new backgrounds, and I'll have new backgrounds I'll rotate through these. But from this location, I wanted to test it today to see if it would work, and I think it's just too much for the bandwidth. Okay, the bandwidth that's available to me is just too much, and that's the reason why we're having problems. So I'll just apologize for that. It might be that I can't use the green screen here at all because of that problem. Yeah, John Clark, if our government, say this, good on you, John Clark. If our government sends in the troops to Mexico, it's not for our benefit. They will only do this because they have an agenda. Yeah, I'd be very suspicious too. It needs to be a surgical type thing with a good force on the border to help protect us. And internally, you have to have security in depth, and I won't go into what that means. I've never had a problem with the Border Patrol working internally of the United States. My problem is the way they treat Americans who talk to them, because we shouldn't all be considered terrorists or the enemy. Okay, we shouldn't be. Yeah, Bliss, I know everything's lagging. Again, I apologize for that. Again, it's probably the bandwidth availability that I don't have here. Like right now, I've got a green. It's saying the stream health is real good. But the bandwidth changes because where I am, there are a lot of people in this area that use the same provider. And on a day like today with the bad weather, and a lot of people are probably home still today, then they're on the internet, and it really messes up the availability. Okay, I think we'll just leave it there. Don't overmodulate too close to the mic. Okay, I'll back it off a little bit, but I think we're finished now anyway. George K. Roy, I will say this. Roy, is the 2,100 children rescued BS? Yes. The closest thing we've had to that is the porn site raid that happened that grabbed a bunch of people, but that wasn't protecting the kids. I mean, that was protecting the kids, but it wasn't rescuing the kids. Yes, it's BS. Absolutely 100%. I already talked about the whole thing.